Universal Pictures presents everything you always wanted to do in high school with everyone you always wanted to do it with.
Hey, bud, let's party.
They're the students of Ridgemont High. Brad Hamilton, the fast food king.
I shall serve no fries before their time.
It says 100% guaranteed, you moron.
Mister, if you don't shut up, I'm gonna kick 100% of your ass.
Charles Jefferson, a man with a mission.
Oh, gnarly.
Linda Barrett, not exactly the girl next door.
Awesome. Totally awesome.
And Jeff surfs up Spicoli.
People on lewds should not drive. That was my skull. I'm so wasted.
See Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
So we talked about this a little bit after the closed screening, but I think there's really just some wonderful comedic performances in this film as well. So how did you come to work with these actors?
Well, actually, Judge Reinhold was my upstairs neighbor, and he was an actor. He was going out with my friend, who was my assistant, and I didn't want to use him because I thought, well, he's my friend. I'm supposed to be casting and looking for somebody that would be a good Brad Hamilton. And the person that was sort of leading the pack was Nicolas Cage. But when you're casting, you keep bringing people back, and sometimes they rise, and sometimes they, don't. And it started to feel like, Nicolas Cage was a great actor, but he was feeling like he was getting a little heavy, not physically heavy, but like it felt like his performance would be a lot more serious. And Judge has a goofiness to him inherently, or at least he did then. So that it felt like, this character was in scenes around the time where there's the abortion and a lot of the sadder moments, and I didn't want it to get too leaden. It was, you want to have those emotional moments, but you also sort of have to keep this balloon up in the air. And I felt like it would be too much with Nicholas. So I went with Judge. Sean Penn came in, blew everybody away. But actually, not so much as Spicoli, but as Sean Penn. And he grew into Spicoli before we started shooting, which was pretty awesome. And what else? Brian Backer was in New York. He had just been in a Woody Allen play, The Floating Light Bulb, and won a Tony Award and Drama Desk Award, and he was amazing. I wasn't finding anybody that I liked for that part in Los Angeles, so when we went out there and I saw him, I was like, oh my God, thank God. Now we've got a good Ratner. And so that's where they came from. But I don't know if anybody cares about this stuff, but the scene where they're back and forth, looking at each other and waving, what I was very influenced by was a Lena Wertmüller movie, The Seduction of Mimi, when Giancarlo Giannini first meets the woman, and she's across the street from him, and they're using the long lenses, so you get that feeling that there's distance, but somebody's really zeroed in on somebody, and they're too far away to talk, even though they look close. I mean, they're big enough to be in a close shot, but they're far, and you get that sense of miming flirtatious stuff back and forth. And I wanted that feeling of seeing somebody, when you see somebody from afar, but afar is across a mall, that would seem like a goofy version of it. So, but you should see Seduction of Mimi is really great in that.
And you talked about at the Clueless screening, someone asked you what it was like to work as a director when you hadn't written the work, so Cameron Crowe in this case was the writer. And you mentioned that you worked with a really young crew. You said that you guys were all kind of babies, so I'm sort of interested to hear about that, about the collaboration and what the crew was like and what it was like to work with everybody.
Really great, because when you do your first movie with a Hollywood crew, they could really, let you kill yourself or really support you. And they really supported me. The DP was not a kid. Matt Leonetti, he was great, but all the other people in the camera crew were, young guys. And, there's a lot of, union old-timers and, but they were all very nice to me, which was, great because, they didn't have, I come in, I'm a short little girl. They could have just, sloughed off, but they were always supporting me, and not like, well, we're doing this way, and no, you can't do things that way. I would express what I wanted, and they figured out how to make it work. So I was lucky. And at that time, Universal was making Psycho 2, so they had this sequel that was an amazing amount of time went by between the original and the sequel. And everybody was very invested in that. And then the real big movie they were messing around with was Best Little Whorehouse in Texas, because it was a play that was really successful, and they paid a lot of money for the rights, and then they had Dolly Parton and Burt Reynolds, and those were big stars, and they had big musical numbers, and everybody was busy overseeing that because that was their big investment. So it was $5 million movie, 35 days, under the radar,
Did you feel really confident when you went into this movie? Did you feel?
Oh, I was scared every day.
Okay.
It's oh my God, will they ever let me do this again?
Yeah. And did anybody expect it to become the hit that it became?
It didn't become a hit, and they were burying it. They didn't want to release it. There was a screening in Orange County, which was a sort of conservative neighborhood, where I got cards where people were just insulting me for exploiting teenagers and saying that everybody should get abortions. And I thought, oh my God, because, when you're in New York and then you go to Hollywood, you see one side of life and you realize, that's just these two little pinpoints on the ends of the country. And it's a very big country with a lot of people with different opinions. And I'm screwed. This is not going to work. They don't like this. And the studio decided to put it on the shelf, really. They were going to open it in 200 theaters just on the West Coast, which is like nothing, which is like saying, it's a little indie movie. And there was no advertising. So they did that, and people were coming to it and coming again where they're yelling out the dialogue with it. Mm-hmm. So then the studio thought, okay, maybe we should show it in the rest of the country. But there was no pre-advertising, so suddenly it comes out in the rest of the country. I think it only made 35, but that was they spent nothing on putting it out there. And, people have seen it. I don't think much from that first time. They buried it. What you gonna do?